In 2014, Microsoft bought Nokia's mobile division for $7.2 billion, thinking that making their own hardware would help Windows Phone succeed. Instead, they just lost billions, fired thousands of employees, and ended up killing off the entire Nokia brand.
Man, Nokia phones were pretty cool. Was Nokia?
Angel Knot.
Salutations to the nations. What's good, Angel Knots? It's your boy, Young Sinai. So, before we get things started today, I got to give a shout out to my daughter who said that when she was at school, she made a pencil stand up by the eraser.
Bang, 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 bang.
I don't see you making no pencil stand up by the eraser, you feel me? Anyways, let's get to it. So, today we are going to be watching a video, 12 tech fails that lost billions from Google Glass to Apple Car. This video is by Jeff Moreland. Shout outs to him. Make sure you go check out his channel. You know what I'm saying? Let's go ahead and get to it.
Next iPhone. In fact, some tech launches crash. Not every great idea turns into the next iPhone. In fact, some tech launches crash so hard they become cautionary tales, burning through money, reputations, and sometimes entire companies. Today, we're counting down the 12 biggest tech failures from the last 3 decades and breaking
Yo, that sound effect, I thought my headphones was messing.
down exactly what went wrong. Number 12, Google Glass. 2013, the smart glasses that nobody wanted. In 2013, Google introduced something that felt straight out of a sci-fi movie.
I think it might have just been a little too early for that.
Google Glass, a sleek, futuristic pair of smart glasses with a built-in display, voice commands, and even a tiny camera. The idea? Instead of pulling out your phone, you'd get notifications, directions, and even video calls.
All right, so how y'all think them look? Y'all think them look dope or y'all think them look crazy? I don't know, man. Like, I know the nerd part of me feel like that look pretty dope, but I think the rest of like sane society, you know, might be a little too nerdy.
right in your field of view. Google pitched it as the next step in wearable tech, an evolution
I don't want notifications just coming up like that all day. You know what I'm saying? That would drive me crazy.
beyond smartphones. At first, the hype was massive. Early adopters, known as
Also, let me know, is this anything that you all have you bought anything on this list if it was released to the public? And would you buy it if it was at the right price?
Glass explorers shelled out a whopping $1,500 just to get their hands on the beta version. Tech demos showed surgeons using glass for real-time medical data, cyclists navigating hands-free, and business professionals effortlessly checking emails mid-conversation. It felt like the future, but in reality, nobody wanted it. The first red flag? The design. While Google tried to make glass look stylish, it ended up making wearers look more like cyborgs than trendsetters.
That's because Google is nerds, man. Like they should have pulled a Meta, you know, like how Meta had the Ray-Ban. Like, let somebody else handle the fashion part. Y'all just handle the tech.
Even worse, the built-in camera freaked people out. Suddenly, anyone wearing Google Glass was assumed to be secretly recording, leading to immediate bans in bars, movies, theaters, and even entire cities. That's how the term glass hole was born.
That is hilarious. I've never heard that term before, but that's pretty funny.
Then there was the tech itself. The tiny display was hard to read in sunlight, and the battery life was terrible. And the software? Unpolished at best. The final nail in the coffin? No real use case. While smartphones made communication and entertainment easier, Google Glass didn't actually solve a problem. It just made people uncomfortable. By 2015, Google pulled
It became a problem.
the plug on the consumer version, trying to pivot towards businesses with Google Glass Enterprise Edition. That lasted a few more years before Google officially shut it down for good in 2023. Today, Google Glass is remembered not as a revolutionary product, but as a cautionary tale, Proof that just because something feels futuristic doesn't mean people actually want it. Number 11, the Microsoft
That's facts.
Zune, 2006 through 2012. The iPod killer that never had a chance. By the mid-2000s, Apple's iPod had already taken
Let me know, did you have a Zune? I heard Zune was low-key better than the iPod, but I never had one.
over the world. Everyone had one. It was sleek,
I just said an iPod. I thought you was saying a Zune. Everybody had one. Okay, my bad.
it was easy to use, and thanks to iTunes, buying and organizing music had never been simpler. But Microsoft, they weren't about to let Apple dominate digital music without a fight. In 2006, they introduced the Zune, their answer to the iPod. And to be fair, on paper, it wasn't bad. The first Zune had a bigger screen, built-in Wi-Fi, and even let you share songs with your friends wirelessly, something that iPod couldn't do at the time. Microsoft was so confident in its success that CEO Steve Ballmer went on record saying the Zune would take a huge chunk of the iPod's market. Except,
Oh yeah, I remember that quote. Yo, he looked super crazy for his quote. I think he said like the iPhone would like never take off or something. One of the worst aging statements in human history.
that never happened. Right from the start, the Zune had problems. The biggest one, it was just too late. By 2006, Apple had already spent 5 years building the iPod's dominance.
Oh yeah, that's a huge head start.
Microsoft was stepping into a fight they had already lost long before they ever threw the first punch. Then there was the ecosystem problem. Apple had iTunes, a massive, well-established music store. The Zune, it had Zune Marketplace, which no one really even used. And even worse, if you already had an iTunes library, switching to Zune meant rebuying all your music. That alone was a deal breaker for most people. And then there was the brown Zune. Microsoft thought one of their main color options should be brown, because nothing says cutting-edge technology like a device that looks like an old couch. But the biggest
Hey, what's wrong with brown? I love brown. You feel me?
issue, nobody wanted to leave the iPod
But low key, I would not get a brown device if given a choice. Black, cool. They should have went with black or something.
ecosystem. Even though later Zune models were objectively better in some ways, like the Zune HD, which had a gorgeous OLED screen. By that point, it didn't even matter. The iPhone was already on the scene, streaming services were starting to take off. The idea of buying an MP3 player at all was slowly becoming outdated. By 2012, Microsoft pulled the plug on the Zune completely. The hardware was discontinued, the Zune Marketplace was shut down, and just like that, Microsoft's attempt at taking down the iPod was gone. Today, the Zune is remembered as a solid device that simply showed up too late to make a difference.
It looked like it was cool technology, but like you said, too little, too late,
It wasn't bad, it was just
or maybe too much, too late.
trying to fight a battle that had already been won. Number 10, Amazon Fire Phone, 2014, the smartphone
I remember that. That thing lasted what, 2 weeks?
that nobody asked for. By 2014, Amazon was already everywhere. They dominated online shopping, ebooks, and streaming, and their Kindle devices were actually really successful. So naturally, Jeff Bezos and his team figured, why not make a smartphone? Enter the Amazon Fire Phone, a device that was supposed to be Amazon's answer to the iPhone and Android flagships. It had a 3D display, a custom operating system, and deep integration with Amazon services. But there was one problem. Actually, a lot
I got to sneeze, but that mug is not coming out.
of problems. First, let's talk about what the Fire Phone actually was. Its biggest selling point was dynamic perspective, a 3D effect that responded to how you tilted the phone. Amazon hyped it up as something revolutionary, but in reality, it was just gimmicky. Instead of making the phone better, it just made navigation weird and unnecessary. Then there was Firefly.
That seems kind of like the first iteration of the Nintendo 3DS. How people just like the 3DS gives me like motion sickness or whatever.
Feature that let you scan real-world objects and instantly buy them on Amazon. And right there was the real issue. This wasn't a phone designed to be the best smartphone on the market. It was designed to be a shopping machine that kept you locked into Amazon's ecosystem.
Which you gonna do no matter what phone you have, whether you got a Fire phone, a iPhone, a Huawei, whatever you got.
And speaking of being locked in, there was no Google Play
Yo, speaking of Huawei, man, I wish I wish the US did not ban Huawei. They are doing some crazy phones. You should really check it out.
If you know, you know.
Store, that meant no Google Maps, no YouTube app, no Gmail. None of the services that Android users actually wanted. Instead, you were stuck with Amazon's Fire OS, which had a much smaller app selection. And let's not forget the price. At launch, Amazon priced the Fire phone at $649, the same price as an iPhone 6 or a Samsung Galaxy S5. But the Fire phone wasn't even close to competing with those devices in terms of specs, app selection, or performance. The result? A total disaster. The Fire phone flopped.
Yo, dude, this should have knew when they, look. Hold up.
Selection or performance. The result? A
Look,
total
look at this.
disaster. The app selection, their phone wasn't even close.
When they put that Amazon logo on the back of their phone, that done cheapened it about $200. Who wants the Amazon logo on the back of your phone? If anything, go with your whole Fire theme. Like put a flame emoji or something. Don't nobody want no Amazon. That looks like you work for Amazon, and that's like a device they give you to walk around the warehouse.
To competing with those devices in terms of specs, app selection, or performance. The result? A total disaster. The Fire phone flopped so hard that Amazon took a $170 million loss on it.
They can afford it. Yo, Jeff Bezos makes so much money. I don't know if you guys realize how much money he makes. Hold on. How much money does Jeff Bezos make a minute? It says as of 2025, Jeff Bezos makes an estimated $23,833.34 a minute. You think I care about them losing $170 million loss for this phone? He can give that out of his salary. Hold on, let me see. So if he make that a minute, hold on, y'all. Y'all know I got ADHD, bear with me. Times 60 equals times 3. That dude makes $34,319,520 a day. I don't care nothing about none of their losses. Get out of here. It hurts a regular person to lose like $20. A regular dude, if a person lost $20, especially in this economy, they would be scrambling, looking. I knew I had that $20 somewhere. They'd be looking through all of their jeans, looking in the washing machine. My goodness.
Just 1 year after its launch, they discontinued it completely. Amazon has done a lot of things right over the years, but the Fire phone is a reminder that not every company needs to make a smartphone. Number 9, the Samsung Galaxy.
Oh man, oh man, oh man. Them Galaxy Note 7s, those mugs were exploding. Literally exploding. And I buy and resell electronics as well as medical commodities, but electronics for a living. Man, when them Note 7s was out, people were just wanting to get them off their hands and was selling them. Man, I was flipping them mugs, selling them to Samsung because they had a buyback. Dude, Samsung was paying like $720 for each one that you sent in. Those were bad times and those were good times, depending on who you were.
Note 7, 2016, the phone that literally exploded. By 2016, Samsung's Galaxy Note lineup was at the top of the smartphone world. It had big screens before big screens were cool, premium hardware, and of course, the S Pen, which made it the ultimate power user device.
Shout outs to the Note, man. That was a great phone. I think my first Note was the Note 3. Then I had a Note 5. Man, I loved the Notes before they got discontinued.
Then came the Galaxy Note 7, and on paper, It was the best Note ever. It had a gorgeous curved AMOLED screen, iris scanning for extra security, water resistance, a massive 3,500 milliamp battery for all-day use. Everything looked perfect until it started blowing up. At first,
Yo, side note, why do uh these phone companies be skipping numbers, right? Excuse me. Golly. Why does Samsung go from like the Samsung S10 all the way jump into the S20? Like, what happened to them numbers in between? I feel like it was a reaction from because iPhone, they went from like the iPhone 8 and then they went to the iPhone X. Like they skipped 9. You know what I'm saying? Like, oh, Samsung's like, oh, we skipping numbers? We're skipping numbers? Watch this. We're gonna jump all the way to 20. Okay, beat that.
the reports started trickling in about the Note 7's catching fire while charging. Samsung reacted quickly, issuing a global recall and replacing affected units. But then, the replacement phones also started catching fire. And that's when things really fell apart. Airlines banned the Note 7 from flights.
Oh, wow.
Stores stopped selling it. The TSA officers were confiscating them at security checkpoints. It became the first smartphone in history to officially be blacklisted from airplanes for being a literal fire hazard.
How embarrassing.
So what went wrong? Samsung had rushed the Note 7's development to beat the iPhone 7 to market. And in doing so, they pushed the battery technology too far. The battery design was flawed. Samsung tried to fit too much capacity into too thin of a frame, causing the batteries to short circuit and overheat.
Wow.
The result, Samsung had no choice but to kill the Note 7 entirely. The recall cost them an estimated $5.3 billion, and their reputation took a massive hit. But here's where Samsung actually did something smart. Instead of sweeping the disaster under the rug, they went all in on fixing their battery safety. They introduced an 8-point battery safety check and completely revamped their quality control process. By the time the Galaxy Note 8 launched, Samsung had rebuilt consumer trust, and the Note lineup survived until Samsung later retired it in favor of the Ultra series. But the Note 7, it'll always be remembered as the most explosive smartphone failure in history, literally. Number 8, the Apple Newton. 1993
Okay, I haven't heard of this one.
through 1998, the PDA that was ahead of its time and also terrible. In the early 90s, Apple had a vision for the future. A pocket-sized digital assistant that could handle your contact,
Was this before or after the Palm Pilot?
calendar, and notes, all without needing a traditional keyboard. They called it the Newton. It was one of Apple's most ambitious designs at the time. The idea was simple. You could write on the screen, and the Newton would convert your handwriting into a digital text. It was
Oh, wow. They finally got their wish now with like the iPad and the Apple Pencil.
supposed to be revolutionary. A personal digital assistant that could make your life easier and replace your paper planner. But there was one problem, actually. Well, a huge problem. The handwriting recognition. The main selling point of the device barely worked. Apple promised that the Newton could accurately read anyone's handwriting, but in reality, it misinterpreted words constantly instead of making notes easier. It just turned everything into unreadable nonsense.
4 double A's.
And it wasn't just the
So that mug is basically a Game Boy DMG model.
software, the hardware wasn't great either. The Newton was bulky expensive, launching at $700, which is insane for 1993. It had terrible battery life, and on top of that, it didn't have a real ecosystem to support it. No app store, no seamless cloud syncing, just a standalone device trying to do too much. But what really sealed its fate? Apple itself. By 1997, Steve Jobs returned to Apple after being fired a decade earlier. And one of the first things he did when taking back control, kill the Newton. He saw it as an overcomplicated, underperforming product that didn't fit Apple's future. And honestly, he wasn't wrong. By 1998, the Newton was officially discontinued, but its core ideas lived on. The concept of a portable touch-based device eventually led to the iPhone and iPad and modern Apple Pencil handwriting recognition.
Yeah.
It actually works now. The Newton was ahead of its time, but also too early and too expensive, and just not good enough to be the game changer that Apple.
See, that's one thing with innovation is It has to be at the right time. Like you have to have a good idea, but it can't be too early. It can't be too late to market, like the Zoom. But it has to be the perfect idea at the perfect time. You have to get both those things right.
Wanted it to be. Number 7, Google Stadia, 2019 through 2023, the future of gaming.
Yeah, I never used this, but I heard it was trash because cloud gaming just wasn't where it's at currently. It's still not perfect, but
That nobody wanted. 2019, Google made a bold claim. You don't need a gaming console anymore. With Google Stadia, they promised high-end AAA gaming that could stream directly to your TV, laptop, phone. No downloads, no expensive hardware, just instant play. All you needed was a controller and a good internet connection. At first, it sounded like a game changer. No more waiting for updates, no need to buy a $500 console. Just click and start playing. But just a few years later, Stadia was completely dead, shut down in 2023 after failing to gain any real
let me know in the comments if you had that. If you had it, was it dope? Did people rag on it too hard or was it just trash?
traction. So what went wrong?
Was it the worst purchase you've ever made in your entire life?
First, the business model made no sense. Stadia wasn't like Xbox Game Pass, where you pay a subscription fee for a full library of games. Instead, Google expected people to buy full-price games individually, but those games could only be played on the Stadia. That meant if the Stadia ever shut down, which it did, you'd lose access to every game you ever bought. Second, latency was a killer.
But that's low-key the problem with a lot of these services. You know what I'm saying? Like Sony, they're taking away games that you bought, whether it's on the PlayStation Network or not.
Promised 4K gaming at 60 frames per second, but
anything you buy digitally is not guaranteed.
Reality, if your internet connection wasn't rock solid, Stadia games suffered from lag, frame drops, and input delay, which is a deal breaker for fast-paced games like shooters and racing titles. Third, Google had a reputation for abandoning products.
Please make sure that you like and subscribe. Okay, back to your regularly scheduled program.
Projects. Look how many times they ended up on this list. Gamers were hesitant to invest in a service run by a company that had already killed off products like Google+, Google Glass, and countless other experiments. Just 3 years later after launch, Stadia was gone. In 2023, Google officially shut it down, refunding customers for their games and hardware, which was at least a nice move, but ultimately proving that cloud gaming just wasn't ready for the mainstream. That doesn't mean the idea is dead. Xbox Cloud Gaming, NVIDIA GeForce Now, and PlayStation Now are still pushing the concept forward. But Stadia, it'll always be remembered as the failed gaming revolution that never took off. Number 6, HD DVD.
Hey, they had to walk so the others could run, you know what I'm saying?
The format war that Blu-ray won before it even started. In the early 2000s, home entertainment was going through a massive shift. DVDs were great, but they weren't high definition. The industry needed a new disc format that could handle 1080p movies, surround sound, and massive storage capacity. Enter HD DVD, backed by
who did you have your money on back then?
Toshiba and Microsoft. And Blu-ray, backed by Sony and nearly every major movie studio.
And be honest, don't try to join the winning team now. You know what I'm saying? Now that Blu-ray took off, did you believe in HD DVD? That's a mouthful. They should have knew it was going to lose just off of that.
At first, it seemed like an even fight. Both formats had huge corporate backing, both had Hollywood support, and both were battling to be the next standard in home video. But by 2008, HD DVD was dead, and the Blu-ray was the undisputed winner. So what happened? First, Sony played chess while Toshiba played checkers.
The chess, it ain't checkers.
Instead of just selling Blu-ray players, Sony built Blu-ray into the PlayStation 3. That meant millions of homes suddenly had a Blu-ray player by default, while HD DVD had no equivalent mass market push. Second, storage capacity mattered. A single-layer HD DVD could hold 15 gigabytes, while a single-layer Blu-ray could hold 25 gigabytes. And for movie studios, more space meant better quality and more bonus content. Third, Warner Brothers killed HD DVD overnight. In January 2008, Warner Brothers, one of the biggest movie studios, announced that they were dropping HD DVD and going all in on Blu-ray. That was the moment the format war ended. Within
Wow.
weeks, Best Buy, Walmart, and Netflix stopped supporting HD DVD, and by February 2008, Toshiba officially surrendered. At the time, this was one of the biggest format wars since VHS versus Betamax. But looking back, it wasn't even close. Sony stacked the deck in Blu-ray's favor, and HD DVD never stood a chance. And the irony, physical media is dying anyway. Streaming took over. 4K Blu-ray is barely holding on, and HD DVD is just a forgotten relic of a battle, ultimately, that didn't matter.
Hey, don't let physical media just completely die. You know what I mean? Do not rely on these streaming services because, like I said earlier, anything that's digital that they own, they will take back or they can take back. You know what I mean? And Sony, ironically, has shown that, you know, and they will not give you an apology. They will not care. They will let the license be over for the movie or whatever. Man, look, I say go ahead and get you a little collection. You know what I mean? Ultimately, at the end of the day, there's no true preservation of all these things because at the end of the day, the Bible say that this world is going to be perishing. You know what I'm saying? But while you here on earth, if you want to have you a little collection, I suggest physical.
Number 5, Nintendo Virtual Boy, 1995, the VR headset that gave you a headache. By the mid-90s, Nintendo was untouchable. The Super Nintendo was a massive success, and the Nintendo 64 was on the horizon, and gaming was bigger than ever. So, when Nintendo announced the Virtual Boy, a portable VR console that promised true 3D gaming, people were hyped. It was supposed to be the next evolution of gaming, a device that would pull you into the action like never before. But instead, it became one of Nintendo's biggest failures ever. The first problem, the display. Instead of a full-color VR experience, the Virtual Boy had a black and red LED display.
Low key now though, looking back at it, like that's like iconic. You know what I'm saying?
Why? Because full-color VR was too expensive at the time. But the result was a screen that was uncomfortable to look at for more than just a few minutes.
Forget the color and the eyes being uncomfortable. Sitting like that, my neck would be uncomfortable sitting like that for a while.
Then there was the hardware itself. Despite being marketed as a portable console, the Virtual Boy wasn't wearable. You had to place it on a table and lean into it to play.
Exactly.
There was no head tracking, no real immersion, just a weird bulky headset that gave players eye strain, dizziness, and headaches. And the biggest issue? The games. Virtual Boy launched with a weak library. It only had 22 games total before Nintendo pulled the plug, compared to hundreds of games on the Game Boy. It wasn't even close. By 1996, the Virtual Boy was discontinued, making it one of Nintendo's fastest failures ever. It sold less than 800,000 units, and most gamers never even saw one in person. But here's the thing. Nintendo actually learned from it. Decades later, they revisited 3D gaming with the Nintendo 3DS, which actually worked. And VR finally became reality with the...
And there's actually an emulator on the 3DS where you can play Virtual Boy games. And you can play them in different color. It doesn't have to be the red. It'll still be monocolor, but you can turn the 3D aspect on and it's pretty dope. I cannot remember what it's called. I will look it up.
devices like the Oculus Rift and the PlayStation VR. The Virtual Boy was ahead of its time, but it was also rushed, underpowered, and just not fun to use. And in the end, if your console gives people headaches, they're probably not going to play it. Number 4, the Facebook Portal, 2018 through
It's called Red Viper. Red Viper. I have it on my 3DS. It's pretty dope.
2023, the video call device nobody trusted. By 2018, Facebook had already conquered social media. They owned Facebook, Instagram, and WhatsApp, and their messaging services were used by billions of people worldwide. So when they announced Portal, a smart video calling device with a built-in camera that could follow you around the room, it seemed like a logical next step. The idea was simple. Make video calls with easier hands-free tracking. Use AI-powered cameras to keep you in the frame. Integrate it with Alexa for smart home control. But there was just one massive problem. Nobody trusted Facebook with a camera.
Facts. That is facts. since I was looking up that thing for Red Viper emulator, I didn't get to hear what company he said it was. I was like, I think he said Facebook. If it's Facebook, I do not trust Facebook to just have a camera. So yeah, exactly. There's low key something that concerns me having like a a Meta Quest device, right? Because like you're literally showing it a 3D layout of your house. I mean, I have one, but I mean, it freaks me out.
In their home. This was right after the Cambridge Analytica scandal, where Facebook was caught mishandling user data. People were already suspicious about Facebook
Hey, Zuck ain't never looked the same after that court appearance.
tracking them online. So the idea of putting a Facebook branded camera in their living room, well, that was a hard pass. And that wasn't the only issue. Portal didn't really do anything new. Amazon's Echo and Show and Google's Nest Hub already handled smart displays and video calls. But those devices also controlled smart homes, played YouTube videos, and had a ton of other functionality. Portal, it was basically a glorified Zoom machine. Even worse, Meta kept making new versions, Portal TV, Portal Go, different sizes, but none of them solved the trust problem. So no matter how much Meta tried to market it, people just didn't want to put Facebook-powered cameras in their homes. By 2023, Meta officially killed the Portal, shifting its focus towards AI and the metaverse. In the end, it wasn't just a failed product, it was a reminder that reputation matters. Because if your company is known for privacy violations, maybe don't try to sell home surveillance devices. Number 3, the Segway, 2001 through 2020.
The Segway was a failure? I feel like a lot of people had those. I mean, it was on Mall Cop and everything.
The revolutionary transport that nobody used. In 2001, the Segway was supposed to change the world. Dean Kamen, its inventor, promised it would revolutionize personal transportation, so much that some investors believed entire cities would be redesigned around it.
That's
It was
funny.
marketed as a self-balancing two-wheeled electric vehicle, faster than walking, more convenient than biking, the future of urban mobility. But instead of becoming a mainstream success, the Segway became a punchline, something you'd see
What'd I say?
in tourist groups, mall cops, and comedy sketches, but nowhere else. So what went wrong? First, the price. When it was launched in 2001, the Segway cost about $5,000.
Oh
That's
my
$8,500 in today's money.
Oh my gosh.
That's a huge price tag for something that couldn't even replace a car. Second, it had no real place in transportation. The Segway was too slow for the road, but too bulky for sidewalks. Cities didn't know how to regulate it, and some outright banned it from public spaces. Third, the image problem. Instead of being a futuristic must-have device, the Segway quickly became associated with mall cops, guided tours, and rich tech guys who just didn't want to walk.
Yo, so story time, really quick, short story. My dad passed away, okay? And my mom, I was meeting up with her for breakfast, and she popped the trunk, and she was like, I thought you might want this. It was your dad's. I looked, and it was a Segway. My dad, he was an assistant property manager, so he had to move around the building a lot, so he had one. But I was like, no, I'm okay. Thanks, though.
It never caught on as a serious form of transportation. And then there was the learning curve. Despite being self-balancing, the Segway still had a steep learning curve, and plenty of people
Oh, that person plants it. Hold up.
in self-balancing.
Oh my
The Segway
gosh.
still had a steep learning curve, and plenty
Oh
of
my
people, including the owner
gosh.
of the company, who literally unalived himself riding one off a cliff, found out the hard way. By 2015, the Segway was bought by Ninebot and it turned out the hard way. By 20, unalived himself riding one off a cliff, found out the hard way. By 2015, the Segway was bought by Ninebot, and in 2020, they officially shut down the production. The technology behind the Segway lived on in hoverboards and e-scooters, but the original device, it'll always be remembered as the most overhyped, overpriced
Yeah, I got a electric scooter. That is way cooler than a Segway.
gadget that never found its place, because at the end of the day, walking is still undefeated. Number 2, Windows Phone, 2010 through 2017. Microsoft's $7 billion.
Yeah, this is where old boy had that quote talking about the iPhone was gonna be trash or something like that.
Mistake. By 2010, the smartphone war was already in full swing. Apple's iPhone was dominating, Android was growing fast, and Microsoft, well, they were still stuck in the past with Windows Mobile, an OS that looked and felt ancient compared to its competition. So Microsoft decided to start fresh. Enter Windows Phone, a brand new mobile operating system with a clean tile-based interface, smooth performance, and deep integration with Microsoft Office and Xbox Live. On paper, it had everything needed to succeed, but in reality, it never stood a chance. The first problem, the App Store, was a ghost town. While iOS and Android had millions
Why didn't they just team up with Android? Doesn't that seem like the most logical thing to do?
of apps, Windows Phone had the basics and not much else. No Instagram for years, no Snapchat, barely any banking or streaming apps. And even when big apps
No banking apps? Are you kidding me? Yeah, this thing's destined to fail. It's one thing to not have Instagram, but shoot, I can't get on and check my bank account? Like, what on earth?
did come to Windows Phone, they often were half-baked versions, missing features. The second problem, Microsoft kept rebooting everything. Windows Phone launched in 2010,
So basically, it was like their computers.
but by 2012, Microsoft forced users to upgrade to Windows Phone 8, which wasn't compatible with the older.
That's their problem, man. Like, they can't. Don't get me wrong. I got a couple Windows computers or whatever, and they have their place. But, dude, like, every time.
If you know, you know.
devices. Then came Windows 10 Mobile, another reboot that killed what little momentum they had left. Even hardcore fans were exhausted. The final nail in the coffin,
Microsoft got money to burn, though. Let's be for real.
the Nokia disaster. In 2014, Microsoft bought Nokia's mobile division for $7.2 billion, thinking that making their own hardware would help Windows Phone succeed. Instead, they just lost billions, fired thousands of employees, and ended up killing off the entire Nokia brand.
Man, Nokia phones were pretty cool. Was Nokia? No, I'm thinking about Nextel. Remember they had the walkie-talkie? That used to be a song. Don't hit me on my Nextel chirp. Y'all remember that?
By 2017, Microsoft had officially given up on Windows Phone, and by 2019, they stopped supporting it entirely. Looking back, Windows Phone wasn't even a bad product. It was actually ahead of its time in some ways. The Metro UI inspired modern smartphone designs, and features like live tiles were genuinely
Hey, that's kind of like what it just showed. Hold on.
inspired modern
That's like Dex for Samsung.
smartphone designs, and features like live tiles were genuinely innovative. But at the end of the day, it didn't matter, because in the smartphone world, if you don't have the apps, you don't have a platform.
Facts.
Number one, the Apple Car, canceled in 2024.
Oh, okay. Because I was like, what's happening with that? Because, I told you I flip iPhones. I'm trying to flip an Apple car. You know?
$10 billion ghost of Silicon Valley. For over a decade, Apple was secretly working on something massive. Not just another iPhone or MacBook, but an actual car.
Oh, you know what it should have had on here? What it should have had listed is the Apple Vision Pro, right? Because that mug was a failure. I mean, they're probably going to create some better version, but the one that they had so far, that mug was a failure.
Codenamed Project Titan, this was supposed to be Apple's big move into the auto industry. The plan? To create a fully autonomous electric vehicle that would revolutionize transportation, just like the iPhone did for mobile tech. These rumors were wild. Some reports said it wouldn't even have a steering wheel. Others claimed it would have AR windshields, next-level AI, and a design straight out of a sci-fi movie. But
I don't want to drive around in an iPhone, man. Let me know. Would you drive around in an iPhone?
after 10 years and billions of dollars in R&D, countless leadership shakeups, Apple had nothing to show for it. So what went wrong? First, Apple never figured out what the car was ever supposed to be. Early, they wanted a full-on self-driving car. No pedals, no wheel, just an AI-powered pod. But when self-driving tech proved way harder than expected, Apple kept changing directions. One year, they were making a full vehicle. The next, they were just making software for other companies. Then they wanted to compete with Tesla directly. Second, Apple had no experience building cars, unlike Tesla, which built its own factories. Apple relies on outside manufacturers, but big automakers like Honda and BMW didn't want to just become another Apple supplier. They wanted a partnership, not an arrangement where Apple takes all the credit. Third, the industry
See, they can't pull what they do in some of these tech industries because these car companies are massive. They're like, yo, we got our own money. I mean, Apple is the biggest company in the world, but I mean, you know, if they don't need Apple money, they don't need Apple money.
moved on without them. While Apple was stuck in development hell, Tesla, Rivian, and even traditional automakers kept pushing forward with EVs and self-driving tech. By the time Apple
Do you got an electric vehicle? Let me know. I don't have one. One, because I don't have the money for one, but two, because I always think if I'm going to get an electric vehicle, it's probably going to be something that's a hybrid because I couldn't imagine like going on a road trip or something and not being able to find somewhere to plug my car in. Shoot, I got anxiety about my phone battery dying. You think I ain't going to about my car? Golly.
was even close to having a real prototype, the market was already saturated. In early 2024, Apple officially canceled the project and shifted resources to AI. A decade of work, billions of dollars spent, and not a single car was ever built. Could Apple still enter the car industry someday? Maybe, but for now, the Apple Car joins a long list of overhyped tech projects that never made it past the drawing board. So what do you think? Did I get them all? Was I wrong about any? Hit the like button, the subscribe.
Yo, that was a good video. Shout outs to him. Make sure that y'all go check out Jeff Moreland. That's Moreland. That was a great video. I guess, like I said, the one that I would have included would be the Apple Vision Pro because I feel like that was a failure. So hold on, let me see, make sure I ain't tripping. Was the Vision Pro a failure? Yes, according to Google. Yes, many sources indicate that the Apple Vision Pro has been deemed a failure, citing reasons such as poor sales, limited use cases, and a lack of compelling content. It was a high price point at $3,499. Adjusted for inflation, that is $3,499. All right, y'all. I appreciate y'all tuning in. Please make sure that you like and subscribe, okay? If you subscribe, I am on my journey to 1,000 subs, my first 1,000 subs. Get in where you fit in. You could be one of the first 1,000. You know what I'm saying? One of the first wow. Also, I am having a contest where you can win a Trim UI brick if you look in the post there. So I appreciate you guys. God bless and salutations to the nations. Peace.
Angel 9.